I call on Rajen Prasad.
Om Bhur Bhuvaswa Tatsaviturvareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. O God, thou art the giver of life, remover of pain and sorrow, the bestower of happiness, O creator of the universe, may we receive thy supreme sin-destroying light. May thou guide our intellect in the right direction. E ngā iwi o tēne rohe, tēnā koutou katoa. E ngā iwi o te motu, ka nui te mihi kia koutou, anō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. To my friends and colleagues, Raymond Ho, Ashraf Chowdhury, Kanwal Singh Bakshi, Melissa Lee, and the Honourable Pansy Wong, my warm greetings. Mr. Speaker, I add my voice to others who have congratulated you, your deputies, and your two associates on your appointment. Even as a new member, I can see the importance of the role and the demands it places on you. I wish you all well. In this, my maiden speech, I want to recall my journey to Parliament and the many voices that have travelled here with me. I remember my arrival in New Zealand on 21 April 1964. The Teal electorate flight took 300 minutes from Nadi in Fiji. It landed at Whenupai Airport in Hobsonville, West Auckland. On the walk from the aircraft to the Air Force hangar that doubled in those days as the international terminal, the cold of that early autumn morning had frozen the toes of the Pacific Indian. I just wanted to go back home. My grandparents, however, before me had taken a much more hazardous journey from Uttar Pradesh in India to Fiji as indentured labourers and under colonial rule. My father was born in Fiji, and there he pioneered public transport. I come from a large family. I'm 11 out of 14, and that included also an extended family across several generations. As an immigrant, I owe an enormous debt of gratitude to New Zealand for the decent education it gave me and for the series of opportunities it provided to work with thousands of its citizens in my various professional and public roles. To now enter New Zealand's 49th Parliament as a member is an honour beyond belief, because this Pacific Indian from Fiji had no business dreaming of this possibility in 1964. To have become a citizen was a privilege, to serve its people a duty, and to now represent them an honour. There are many people who have been part of my journey, and in a sense, they are here with me today. My journey to Parliament is essentially their journey, and those with whom I have travelled here will always remain my reference point. My maiden speech is a tribute to them and all that they have contributed to in my life. The best way I can say thank you to them for their generosity over the years is to ensure that my privileged knowledge of their experiences informs the next generation of policies and programs that are devised here in their interests. Mr. Speaker, my wife Prem and my two children and their partners are extremely important to me. In exactly an hour from now, we will have been married 40 years. Prem has been my constant companion and the bedrock of our family. She often tells others, I think in jest, that the only reason I married her was for the green card. I don't often get a chance to tell her that I appreciate all that she has done and continues to do for me and for our family, but I do so today. I also have two very special children who, together with their partners, are wonderfully principled adults who seek to make their special contribution to our society. My mother-in-law, God bless her, who lives in Auckland, has a unique relationship with me. When Prem is around, I am treated like a prince, and I thank her for that. When Prem is not around, I'm treated like a prince. When Prem is present, I take my place in a different pecking order. Mr. Speaker, my life in New Zealand, however, did not have a smooth beginning. Soon after we got married, I was asked by the Immigration Service to return to Fiji as I did not qualify for residence. Despite a 3-year battle to have this decision overturned, we were unsuccessful. We made preparations to leave New Zealand to have our first child in Fiji and to set up home there. A group of community leaders from West Auckland, and the Honourable Peter Sharples knows them well, kia ora Peter, to West Auckland where we lived, led by the principal of the school at which my wife taught, decided to question the decision and ask for it to be reversed because they believed an injustice had occurred. On 24 December, our dear friend Nigel Langston arrived at our home with a letter to say I had been granted permanent residence. The power of advocacy was alive. I have never forgotten what this group of friends did for me, and I owe a debt of gratitude to them to this day, but one of this act of kindness grew something, out of this act of kindness grew something I will always value. Nigel Langston, who lives in Henderson, and Elwyn Richardson, who lives in Taupaki in West Auckland, are both pioneers in the field of education and have remained close friends of ours. They taught me social conscience. They taught me about sustained work, about principles and values, about contributing to society, and about the value of a good education. I have often wondered why people go out of their way to assist strangers and expect nothing in return. They were of a culture very different to mine, and yet they could see what I could not see, that is, the contribution I could make in the years ahead. They nourished me, accepted me into their family, and developed my imagination about how things could be in New Zealand. They demonstrated to me that their faith and commitment to the human spirit, the human family, and to the communities in which we are embedded, and they expected nothing in return. Mr. Speaker, they are mentors today. They gave me confidence to have faith in people, especially the poor and the powerless. They taught me that it was a privilege to serve them and never to give up on them. I thank them sincerely. For some people, this is not a particularly remarkable story, but when I try to understand my life in New Zealand and what I bring to Parliament, it takes on significance that is sometimes beyond comprehension. I want to acknowledge my mother, who lives in Vancouver, 90 years old, and my brother and sisters and their families, 140 of them, who live around the globe. My mother is the matriarch of the family and holds us together exceptionally well. This is a proud moment for her, too, and like other members of my family, she travels in this Parliament with me. Mr. Speaker, I remember a particular family I worked with as a child welfare officer. I had been visiting this family of mum, dad, and 3 children for several months without any real idea of how I might be helpful to this family. The father was not well socialized, reluctant to engage with welfare officers. The children attended special classes, the house was filthy, and the mother had serious disabilities. Without fail, every week, produced complaints to us from teachers, health nurses, visiting teachers, doctors, and others to do something about them. Even my head office inspector said to me, "Rajen, don't bother with this family, you won't change them." A crisis occurred with the family when the mother was to be admitted to hospital and the father was desperate for someone to look after the 3 children. I was able to place the eldest daughter in one children's home and the 2 boys in another. The children missed each other so terribly and were so unhappy in their respective foster placements that I took them back to meet each other. When I saw them interacting with each other, the first time I brought them together, I realized what an awful option we were pursuing and concluded that the emphasis should always have been on supporting the family intensively. I took the children home to Dad. I made a case to my head office to provide 20 hours of home help so that this family could be assisted. And the Lions Club agreed to commercially clean their property. When head office refused to provide support for a family in work, because they were in work, I made another case with an estimate of what it would cost the state to care for the 3 children in foster homes. They then approved it immediately. A lady from the local church offered to take on the job. She became a role model. The children quickly learned new behaviors. The mother, despite her disabilities, became more involved, and life changed dramatically. Complaints from the school and others ceased. Family outings became regular, and my inspector was proved wrong. A few years later, I followed up the case. The family had won the lottery. I wish all my clients had won the lottery. The mother who had succumbed to poor health died, and the children were doing just fine. For me, the story confirms the resilience of families and that we should never be too eager to write of families when we find them at a low ebb. Mr. Speaker, the importance of the early years for children and its implications for families is now accepted and as the best approach to social well-being and positive human development. In my opinion, the best out-of-home site to locate support systems for our children and their families is the school. New Zealand has an excellent framework for the delivery of education and locates our schools in the midst of our communities they serve. The huge plant and infrastructure that schools represent can be utilized much more effectively for the delivery of support during the early years. I had a role in pioneering school social work in New Zealand in the early 1990s, and now it has been generalized to several hundred schools. The potential for schools of the 21st century to be family resource centers is enormous, and provided they are appropriately funded, represent an opportunity yet to be maximized. Most recently, I was privileged to help establish the Families Commission. We are fortunate in New Zealand that we have an institution that is growing in stature with a unique but simple mandate to advocate for all New Zealand families in a manner that enhances their well-being and resilience. It is required to do this in consultation with families and institutions that support them. They are also expected to undertake research, examine international systems, provide policy advice and information to families. This is a very effective commission that quietly goes about delivering a high standard of work in a timely manner. In my view, it is one of the most talented and committed staff in this field, and their independence enables them to make proposals that are evidence-based. In my view, those who criticize the Commission have not had the benefit of fully understanding their legislated mandate, its completed work program, and its ongoing work. The Commission operates a solid scientific model to bring forward policy advice and provide information to families. I've had the privilege to have worked with this group of people, and they work with me in this Parliament as well. Mr. Speaker, since the 1975 and 1987 reviews of immigration and a shift from a white immigration policy to a merits-based policy, the cultural landscape of New Zealand has changed dramatically and irreversibly. I want to acknowledge the significance of New Zealand's ethnic communities and the sizable contribution they make to our society. Their impact on the lived experiences of New Zealanders is quite pervasive and extends beyond diet, language, friendships, and celebrations to impact on those who are included now in our families and the ethnicities of our future grandchildren. This has happened in my observation with considerable speed and is a good omen for cultural acceptance and integration. The real future challenge, however, for New Zealand is to develop a new cultural policy based on our creative diversity. According to one writer, unless a country is united and cohesive, it cannot act as a single community able either to take and enforce collectively binding decisions or to regulate and resolve inescapable conflicts between its constituent communities. It also needs unity and cohesion to provide a focus for collective self-consciousness, to encourage a sense of common belonging and citizenship, and to foster a spirit of shared national identity, without which its members lack mutual trust and goodwill to make sacrifices and accept common compromises required by the pursuit of the common good. I want to say thank you to the many ethnic groups that I've worked with over the years, and especially members of my own community, for their support and guidance. You all travel with me to the 49th Parliament. Mr. Speaker, much has been said in the past few months about our troubling incidents of violence. Many promises have been made about how this will be fixed in quick time. While acknowledging the depth of concern about this and the needs to address the problem, I want to caution against developing solutions that do nothing for the complex reasons behind violence. The record of draconian measures that receive public support as the only response is not impressive in changing national performance. Well thought out measures, on the other hand, should be developed, implemented, evaluated and reviewed as the considered response. The unintended consequences of producing a fractured society, even when trying to address the problem, must always be factored in. There are no silver bullets to resolving this problem, but it requires careful thought and planning. The stories of the victims of violence, including the children we have lost, also travel with me to the 49th Parliament, and I commit to doing all I can to alter our national performance in this area. A final group who travel with me to Parliament is made up of those who are the victims of leaky buildings. In particular, I am thinking about those for whom their buildings are their homes, as opposed to those for whom it is an investment. The problem has been well publicized, and many of us know of families whose mental health has suffered, and some have taken their lives in desperation. Honourable members, if you have not done so already, I ask you to find out the extent of the problem in your areas and meet some of the desperate people who are victims. You will find their stories compelling. Many countries live in limbo and are out of pocket, while lawyers, builders, and developers are benefiting enormously from their situation. I hope this can be resolved. Mr. Speaker, in concluding my final address to this House, I want to acknowledge friends and supporters from my community who are here today and thank them all for their friendship and for their guidance over the years. The well-being of all New Zealanders depends on a strong economy, strong families, and strong communities. The formula that national development is the product of a balance between economic development and social development is the most pervasive aspect of Labour Party philosophy, and therefore, in my view, the best vehicle to advance the interests of the people who have brought me here. I look forward to working with them over the next 3 years. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, a tēnā rā koutou katoa. Aur, dhanabad, and thank you.